We're in business.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wolfeboro Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. My name is Fred Tedeschi. I act as chairman. To my immediate left is Sarah Silk. She's our vice chair. To my right is Luke Freudenberg. He's a member. To his right is Peter Colcord. And to the far right is our clerk, Tim Cronin. Tim, would you read the first item for tonight?
First case this evening is case number 04-V-19, tax map 188-63, Sky Ridge Farm Condominiums. Public hearing for section 175-80, Article 7 of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance to follow for the construction of a two-car garage within the side setback. Site visit was held today with Chairman Fred Tedeschi, Peter Colcord, Sarah Silk, and Tim Cronin. Appropriate copies were sent to all of the town managers and everyone listed on the list of the original application.
Thank you. For the purpose of this hearing, our alternate, Dave Senecal, will not be sitting. Sorry about that. Please feel free to do this when I go back. For the purpose of this hearing, our alternate, Dave Senecal, will not be sitting. All right, who's going to speak for our petitioner here, our applicant?
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Whoa, it's loud. My name is Dan Coons, and I'm representing the Sky Ridge Farms condominiums. The condominiums were constructed, as far as I know, back in the 70s or 80s. And at that point, they constructed 4 garages that service one of the buildings over in there. The other 4 units that are in what's called the barn building have never had garage units. And as far as I know, all 4 of the unit owners are here during the winter and would like to have garage space. Due to an incoming water line and combined with mobility units or mobility issues for one of the unit owners, we've had to separate the garages. 1 2-car garage that is not part of the discussion is located next to the entrance. And for reasons of mobility, we have applied to put the other garage as close to the south end of the building as possible. In doing so, due to the irregular shape of the lot, as well as a paved driveway getting in and turnaround issues, we've placed it in front, closer than the 20-foot side setback.
Would you go through the criteria, please? Thank you.
Item number 1, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The proposed site will have no impact at all on the public. It is not out of character with the property nor the area and will not negatively affect public safety, health, or welfare. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because the proposed location is either unusable land due to the slope of the property and location next to low-value wetlands. Substantial justice is done because another garage is located on the premises. The proposal will provide garage space to all units. Infrastructure and safety concerns limit where the garage can be practically placed without setback impact. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished because the garage cannot be seen from any nearby or abutting dwellings. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship because of the limited mobility of one of the unit owners is the reason for the proposed location. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, no fair or substantial relationship exists between the purposes of the ordinance applicable to the application and the specific application of that provision of the property because the location of the wetlands, shape the lot, and mobility issues combined with the decision to choose the current location.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to make comments supporting the application? Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Okay. Seeing no one speaking in favor or other person speaking in favor or in opposition, I close the public hearing. We'll have our discussion of the application. Thank you, Mr. Coons.
Yep.
Any further questions for Mr. Coons? No? Okay.
It was pretty clear.
No, I would just like to thank Mr. Coons for going out today so we could get an accurate idea of exactly where this building was. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, any comments, or should we just go through the items one by one?
Pretty clear.
All right, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I think the applicant has made a good presentation as to where the garage will be and where it, and how lack of impact it will have on other properties or on any neighbors. So I think we can find that it's not contrary to the public interest or the public safety, health, or welfare.
I observed that you, I think it was you, Fred, when we went on the viewing, asked a question about the property adjacent to it, and it was explained that it was owned by someone else, but it's not, virtually not usable. And we could barely see the next abutting house, so I think you're right on there.
Okay. Criteria 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. I think the applicant has indicated that the site of the garage is limited by a lot of unusable land because of moisture problems. And it seems like putting this garage close to the unit owner's residence is certainly a good thing, and it doesn't have any negative impact on neighbors or on the use of the property. Other comments?
There was also a water pipe that was on the other end of the building, which prevented it from being over there.
So the site of the current use of the property does limit where it can be. Right? Substantial justice is done. Usually substantial justice is where the detriment to the unit, to this particular applicant, is not outweighed by a detriment to the public. Here, it does not appear that there is any indication from any of the neighbors or the neighboring landowners that there is an issue with the location of the garage. So I think this this criteria is certainly met. Number 4, the values of surrounding property will not be diminished. There's been no testimony given to the fact that this would have any adverse impact on neighbors or on their property values, and therefore we can view this as having been met. And the 5th criteria is literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. We did hear that there were special conditions for this property, that there are moist areas, I won't call them wetlands, but there are moist areas that limit where this can go. There's also some existing facilities, including a water pipe, that limits the area in which the construction can occur. I think it's also a reasonable use in that it makes a place for a garage for 2 of the unit owners to have their vehicles. Any other comments or additions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the variance then.
I would would entertain a motion that we approve TM 188-63, case number 04-V-19, applicants Sky Ridge Farm condominiums with all of the attached conditions from the town planner.
And you're familiar with the conditions, Mr. Coons? Yes. Okay. Is there a motion? Motion has been duly made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Your variance is granted. You're welcome. Yes. We have some more items on our agenda, but nothing exciting, it's like minutes and consideration of procedural items. You're welcome to stay, but we're never offended if people leave and go on their way.
That's it.
May they all be this exciting. Any more tomorrow night.
Why do we need planning?
That's very neighborly.
Thanks again for the month delay. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Welcome.
Will help. Good night.
Welcome. Okay, the next item on our agenda are consideration of minutes. I did not see in what was distributed a rewrite of the February 4th minutes. No.
I think that was one of the attachments you didn't get.
Oh, that's one of the attachments that I didn't get? Okay, thank you. The only attachment I got was the revised rules. I got both emails, but there was only one.
Yeah, I didn't, there was one attachment. I didn't see the minutes attached to it.
Okay.
So we can review them next month.
I got them. I did.
You did? Maybe it was on that first one.
Maybe I got buttons and no attachments?
What? I know, I saw the thing. What's with the buttons?
There were buttons on the bottom that said,
Yes.
thanks.
Oh,
I printed.
It was in the original email with the costs and all that, the site visit reminder.
Mine came out with just a bunch of letters and hieroglyphics and things. That's why I asked you to resend it.
Gmail said no attachments for you. No.
yeah. So are we going to table both sets then?
We'll table both, and we'll
Okay.
have a fun meeting next time.
I didn't get, not to sound confusing, but on March 4th, it referred to an attachment that wasn't with the minutes. That was, yes, on page 2.
Council's opinion.
Second, it says a legal opinion from the ZBA council is attached addressing the special exception requirements, except it was,
Oh, okay.
okay. Well, the next time you try to send them, you can take just, okay. No, like, Matt sent me a thing about the June 1st meeting, and I couldn't open that up. But then I called Terry, and she sent it to me a little bit differently, and then I could open it up. So, but I could open everything you sent. No, everything I got from you was fine. But there was something I got from him recently that having to do with the training, the ZBA training. And I couldn't open that up. But then I just called Terry, and she sent it to me a different way. Sometimes I think my computer isn't new enough.
Sometimes my computer does create the hierarchy.
Rules, yeah.
Yep.
I guess we have to go back to the old-fashioned, we put them in the box. Yeah, no, I,
Need the NSA to decode that. Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan, you have something to speak to us about.
Yes, I'd like to review the proposed amendments to the zoning board rules of procedure. You may notice that on the agenda tonight, we did not have the election of officers as we normally have at the April meeting. The reason for that is that our rules of procedure, because we've gone from an appointed to an elected ZBA, didn't contemplate how we would actually go about an election of officers. So what I've done is I'm going to simply suggest that you delay the election of officers and allow Fred to serve for the next meeting. And I've recommended some rules of procedure amendments for your consideration. And I'll just quickly read through these because per our rules now, we're required to do 2 readings of these before adopting them. So starting on the first page, you'll see under section 2, members, I've removed the language appointed by the Board of Selectmen and added in what should say elected by the legislative, not the legislative body, to serve staggered 3-year terms. And that staggered term is specifically prescribed by statute. I'm not just adding that in there. That's something that we're required to do, and we currently have that mechanism in place. In the second item under members, you'll see that I've again removed some language here, but instead of appointing by the Board of Selectmen for alternate members, it is appropriate for the ZBA to appoint their alternates once we move to this system. So I've made that recommendation there. What's interesting about this is that in the past, Dave was appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Now what we'll do is the Board of Selectmen will recommend to the ZBA, and the ZBA will formally appoint Dave as an alternate. It's just sort of a mechanical change there.
Okay.
Under section 3,
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Now, usually the Board of Selectmen would advertise for all, bless you, all the
sorry.
various openings. Now, will they take the role of still advertising for openings for this board, or do we have to advertise separately?
This body should take responsibility for advertising. Ultimately, we'll probably still work through the town manager secretary or Terry, probably Terry, but this board will really have responsibility that the Board of Selectmen held before. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, I just didn't know if we could piggyback on their ad instead of having to pay for a separate one, but maybe we do have to pay for a separate one.
Yeah, we'll probably have to pay for a separate one. And even last year when I did the advertisement, I was paying for it anyway because it's a land use board. So not much changing, but if that answers your question.
So then you would have an ad for members who want to serve as alternate to elected boards, like the planning board and the zoning board?
So that's how we do it right now, yes.
Okay.
We, for the planning board, where their alternates are appointed, just like the ZBA now will be by the planning board, we'll follow the same mechanism there. What we may end up doing is actually piggybacking the planning board and the zoning board together so that we're advertising. We actually need some folks for the EDC as well. So we may lump all those together into one advertisement.
Okay.
Section 3 on the officers, 3 identical changes here in items 1, 2, and 3, and that is simply to amend this to rather than after the appointment of new members by the Board of Selectmen, it's after the election of new members to the Board of Adjustment, because obviously the legislative body takes control here, and that's the same change in numbers 1, 2, and 3. The only other amendment to the rules that I have proposed is under item 6, and this is related to attendance of the meetings. In the past, the Board of Selectmen basically had the authorization to remove members. Now that authority will lie directly with the ZBA, and I don't feel there's any need to state that here. If there's an issue with attendance, the ZBA reserves the right to remove a member if that person has unexcused absences that are over some prolonged period of time.
Even a person that's elected, the ZBA can remove them for non-attendance?
I better check on that, but I think we can. I think you absolutely can. But I will need to check with that.
I think then what's left there is we have affirmatively vote to request that the member resigns. Do we have the authority to, in effect, to fire somebody? I think that ought to be made clear if in fact we have that authority.
Yeah, I mean, my gut says that you don't, honestly, if I really think about it. But at the same time, if a member is elected and they simply do not show up for a period of a year, I'm guessing it's something that hasn't been tested under law, but I'll look into it and I'll get you an answer in advance of the second reading, because I would think that you probably don't have the authority, but I think there's probably some reasonableness there as well.
Well, I think it's addressed in the paragraphs, so the unexcused absence of a regular or alternate member from 2 consecutive meetings or 2 meetings in a 12-month period shall provide sufficient reason, or that the majority of the board can ask them to resign.
But wasn't that
I think
paragraph
that-
written?
Doesn't that answer your question, Tim?
Was that paragraph written before they started electing people in general elections?
Yeah, I think it's been in there, because usually, at least in the past, when I haven't been able to make it, I usually would get a hold of Fred or Robin to tell them why. Quite often, I would have another meeting that would conflict.
I think you should be able to do it, but if it's a duly elected person, you're going against the vote of the people.
Yeah, I think as a matter of practice, you probably shouldn't be voting to remove people that are elected by the people.
Well, you
So
could-
let's just leave
Well,
it that way,
the-
as it reads now.
The ZBA board members can affirmatively request that the member resigns from the board, but that doesn't mean they need to say yes.
That's exactly right.
How does the planning board deal with this, or don't they care if their people don't show up?
The planning board's rules of procedure they do have an attendance policy. Let me look at that real quick. And I believe that.
Because they're elected as well.
I think that theirs is very similar to this, or what this says, anyway. Yeah. But your issue usually is, sometimes you don't have enough regular members or alternates.
Yeah.
You have to keep them no matter what.
You guys may not want me back again anyway, so if you get some other good people. So.
I don't see any support for that position. Sorry, Dave, you're not going to get out that
You know what
early.
Mark Pepper told me one time? Once they put you in
Yeah.
you're there till you die unless they give you, somebody else your position, so. And
Well,
and-
I
and
will-
we're not accepting death,
I will,
just so you know.
I will put my name in, certainly, to be an alternate, but
And
I
here-
will get a firm answer on this question, but I think the short answer is you do not have the authority to
That
do
would be
it.
mine.
But I'll confirm that. And I'm not sure it's specifically even spelled out in law, but I think it's pretty clear that if you're voted into term by the legislative body, you likely can't, as a body, do that.
But it also says here that provide sufficient reason for a majority of the board to vote affirmatively to request
Right.
that the member resigns. That's
Right.
not actually firing them. So.
Yeah, so I don't think the language here has to change at all. It just depends what the actual technical answer is, and I'll get that back to you.
And I had a change on page 5.
Okay?
We just need to take out Mike Harder's name and put.
Yeah, I was going to note that. We obviously will change that once we actually finalize here. And we'll obviously amend the dates on the rules of procedure as well.
The only other question, Matt, is in Roman 2, I mean, the election is phased in. While you're talking to council, does she feel that we need to phase that in as well?
Fred, walk me through that.
Well, it says consists of 5 regular members who shall be elected by the legislative body, but only one of us so far has been elected by the legislative body.
Correct.
That's because you guys that were last appointed have to finish your
Right.
term.
Yeah, so
No, I
you,
realize that, but this seems to imply that all five of members were elected by the legislative body.
I think we're writing the rules in sort of a preemptive way. So I understand your question. I'm just sort of writing them so they don't have to be adapted every single year. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, the reality is right now that we are dealing with appointed members, and I think we have documentation to support that. But it's
Okay.
a good point.
Yeah, ultimately it will, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying now, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the first reading, or do we have to?
And we'll have to have a reading again at the next meeting.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the way I read the rules, if you look at section 11 at the end, obviously we require a majority vote. And and then 2 successive meetings, but it also says immediately preceding the meeting, so I don't actually believe that we can adopt these until what will be our June meeting, which is sort of an odd quirk of these rules, but it'll be some time.
I don't see any great urgency to,
Neither do I.
okay.
One thing I would add, though, is if the board feels the need to have an election of officers for each meeting up until that point, you can certainly do that. The recommendation from council in the past has been that you simply elect a temporary slate of officers for each meeting. You're welcome to do that, or you can simply continue with the structure that's in place now. I'll defer to the board on whatever you'd like to do. So it's up to you.
I think last year what we did is just assume that people continue in office until
Right.
they're
Right.
replaced.
Yep.
so.
If everyone's comfortable, that'd be.
But I do see a revolt starting here to replace me. You support, no. That was a hint.
You're getting about as much support as I am, Fred.
That's right. Once we own you, that's it. You know?
All right, anything else to come before the meeting? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting is adjourned.